The Puma Deviate Nitro 3 250 plus miles. We're hitting a pretty significant milestone in this daily trainer's life. How is it looking? Can we keep going? Is it the end of the line? Let's take a look, discuss, and find out. So before we get into the video, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed, watching content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Strava for all sorts of other updates and things like that. So without further ado, let's begin. Specs somewhere up here for the shoe. Let's get into the outsole shape first. Just cover our main focus for this shoe at this time, right? So here we go. That is our left shoe, and this is our right shoe. So the first thing to just kind of get off the air here is I didn't have a 200 plus mile review for this shoe, only because things got a little bit busy. I ended up going to New Orleans for a work thing, and just in the process of putting on mileage and just running, we got 50 extra miles on the shoe, and that's how we're at this stage, right? So it's probably more interesting to get to this point than 200 from 150. So yeah, with that in mind, we should just talk about the biggest culprits or the biggest red flags on the shoe right now. And as you can see, that's the exterior side of the outsole on the left foot. As you can see, we got officially rubber breaking off, and we are exposing the foam of the shoe to the ground. Is this an immediate problem? Not so much. Is it something of massive concern? Yes. So at this time, it's worth noting that this shoe's lifespan is significantly worse for my running form compared to the Puma Deviate Nitro. I think it's the predecessor version, the Nitro 2 in this case. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the main one, of course, is going to be the offset of the shoe, right? This shoe has an 8mm offset in terms of its stack height here. And that causes the shoe not only to have, this higher heel effect, and then the shoe to basically go exterior a little bit. In return, your running form is sort of pressed on to go in this direction. So even if you intentionally pronate a little bit, the shoe is still going to aim on landing on the exterior side of your foot. And that's why, in my particular case, as somebody who shouldn't be necessarily running in an 8 or 10mm shoe for training purposes, this is why all the massive wear is on this side of the shoe and the internal side of the shoe is the way it is, right? Is this like some kind of handicap for my running? Not necessarily. It's going to cause a lot of issues on the outside of the shoe, right? Ideally, you want to run in a shoe where the wear is going to be kind of in the center portion of the shoe, because that's kind of the purpose. You want more surface area to spread the load of your foot, right? So in the Deviate Nitro 2, the offset I believe was 5 or 6mm. I'll have to double check it, but because it was less, the shoe had a slightly lower heel, and the shoe sort of pronated a little bit more. It had a more natural approach, but it wasn't like a completely flat natural like a track spike, right? Or a negative offset, if you look at like the Asics Meta Speed Sky Plus, for example. So that being said, the shoe's lifespan could probably be okay if you're used to having more, if you have bad pronation, you need that shoe with extra supination to offset that. But for me, not good, right? Okay, so we've talked about that piece enough. On the right foot, the wear is about the same. We don't have as much rubber wear and tear that's kind of cutting into the foam quite yet. We do see, if we look at it, I wonder if we can, how are we going to show this piece? Anyways, so there's foam and rubber on this end, and part of the foam is beginning to squish into the rubber side here, and we have a little bit of exposure. So I'm expecting this piece of the shoe to start caving outwards onto the foam piece, okay? So the theme of what I'm saying here is that for my current running form being a little bit more normal, nothing too special, not requiring a higher offset for that sort of daily training, the outsides of the shoes are starting to take a beating. The middle of the areas are pretty much okay. The heels are mostly untouched unless I'm walking in them or intentionally doing a running drill that would otherwise cause me to strike with the heel. But yeah, that's just kind of on our outsides. When we look at the top of the shoes, nothing too significant to report. I don't see any massive wear, tear, ripping of any sort. The shoe is sort of dirty. Again, I was in New Orleans. There was just a hurricane that passed by when I was out there. It was a little bit dusty, a little bit wet. So there's just dirt all over the shoe, but I'll get that cleaned up and whatnot. In terms of, I guess, foam fatigue, it's starting to lose a little bit of the snap that I had early on, which is expected at 250 plus miles. And granted, we have that Nitro Elite foam running the top, and then we have this like EVA style, I guess, support foam, and that support foam is in good shape. The Nitro Elite foam is starting to have some fatigue cracks going across the middle area of the shoe right here and here, which is for me a good sign. That's just telling me that my strike zone has been usually on the outside of the shoe, but sort of the midfoot area as well, with a roll in onto the outside, and that's why we have these kind of streaks going on. On the upper, the only thing worth noting is, I suppose, that the shoelaces themselves, they tend to twist the way they are, and it causes issues in terms of pinching whenever I try to tie them again. So I could always just take out the shoelaces and just refly them accordingly so that you have the flat piece here again. But again, it's just something I've noticed as we've kind of gone along here. One of the other things I recall with this shoe, which I can't even describe how I got it to this point, is sometimes when I start my runs, the insoles don't feel locked in. And when I'm running, it's like I'm sliding on the insole and smacking the front of the shoe until eventually it kind of locks itself down. I've never had that happen with a shoe at any point, but I don't remember how it got to a point where I was getting the insole to slide around. I don't remember if it was because I was barefoot in this thing once before, and when pulling my foot out, the insole might have slipped at some point, or just something along those lines, but it was kind of odd, kind of strange. So, I'll say this much: at 250 plus miles, we'll just keep it short and sweet. It still has some life in it. The wear and tear has me concerned that I could cause some soreness, some sort of pain, if I continue pushing mileage in the shoe, but at the same time, there's still something to be given here. Now, again, this is the successor to the Deviate Nitro 2, which I think a lot of us would argue may be the better shoe between the two. And I had an earlier review that said, hey, I'm feeling optimistic about this. 8mm offset is kind of cool. Let's just give this a try. And a lot of people in the comments kind of already alluded to the idea of like, there's no way I would get this shoe to 250 plus miles in one piece. That being said, I got it to 250, but I do agree that this is far worse looking than the Deviate Nitro 2 looked when I got it to the same amount of mileage, because my wear was mostly in the center of the shoe and a little bit on the outside. So the lifespan for my particular running form, not too great. I think if you have a more balanced running form, or you have a running form that requires a little bit more stability, this is the right shoe, in my opinion, for that move. If you already have more stability as a runner, and you have that experience on your feet, and you have the muscle groups built up in your ankles and the proper balance, the Deviate Nitro 2 would be the better shoe in this case. So those are just some of my 2 cents, just based on the metrics for the shoes per mile, the stats for each shoe, and where they kind of benefit you personally as a runner. And yeah, I think we're just going to keep pushing this shoe until I'm completely exposing the foam and I go on a run and it just does not feel good to run in this thing, right? I do have some new daily trainers coming in that I want to test and eventually get into my lineup. It's just a case of having these hold on for dear life until we get to that point. Again, we are less than 3 weeks away from the Chicago Marathon, so I do need a reliable daily trainer to get me through some easy work in the meantime. But so far, this thing has been awesome in this particular training block. It's been reliable on the treadmills, outdoors, as, you know, just the shoe that I can rely on for my easy work, more or less. So, yeah, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, agreements, disagreements with this review, let me know in the comments below. But, yeah, this has been pretty awesome so far. I guess my overall assessment with Puma in this case is like their daily trainer product is really good. Their race day product is not quite there for me personally. I'm sure for others it might be right about there. But there's time. I think Puma can still put in that time for development and make the proper product that isn't too overly ambitious. But will be something that can satisfy a customer or like the average Joe runner like me. Whereas like the daily product, like they got it right. They're keeping it simple looking, and they've kept it, you know, spec wise just about where the rest of the market is, which is like a carbon plate stacked between your fast foam and your reliable, durable foam with some rubber to coat that, and as a result, you will get a good, responsive, well-received shoe in return. So I think that's where we're going to leave it here. So again, thanks for watching the review. I'll see you guys in the next one.